So, because, and I guess this is governmentally related. Let me put it this way. I don't know if it will apply for your lovely puppy. So, in short, I can't allow the puppy in school and class without proper authorization.
Okay.
However, this is why I had to take a second here. We have, as scheduled, the Model Congress activity, which is, so to sort of put in perspective, we have this name game assignment due on Wednesday, right? And then we'll do the test in fact, we got to vote on that, the 18th or the 22nd, okay? But then we get back from Christmas break. The next big assignment is the Model Congress assignment. Now, I allow students to have, well, everybody's going to create a piece of legislation. But the piece of legislation can be specifically about animal cruelty laws, can be about ASPCA regulations, can be about local service hours. And with that, I've had students bring in visual aids with that assignment. So I've had kids bring in, like, wow, that is sharp and heavy. Weird. Wow, that's gotten bad within like 20 minutes. Wowzers. Okay. And they still haven't come to fix it. Okay. So back to your point, what would work? I've had kids bring in, like visual aids on like easels and PowerPoints. I've had them bring in different, like certain diagrams from some sweatshops. I had one kid bring that in, not just the diagrams, but actual articles. They showed the bottom, the adhesive that many Nike factories uses for the actual foam on the bottom of shoes is in many countries a carcinogen because they don't follow any EPA regulation. So kids can bring all those in. I have had kids with permission from family and the front office to bring in, be it a rescue pet. Some of you guys know the Drapers.
Yeah.
They had, I don't know if they do anymore, they had a dog that was like only had 3 legs, I think. It was like a rescue pet. If that sounds somewhat familiar. Anyway, they brought him in with permission, that was fine. Last year we had a student, the Cawthorns, I think is their last name, but they had a rescue chicken named Hot Sauce, which was like a little mind-bending, like, wait a second, are we making, and that was, got approved and they brought him in as the visual aid there. So that's a long answer to no initially, but maybe if it applies to a Model Congress thing. Does that make sense? So maybe they won't be as cute because the puppy's a little older in January, but.
Hey, or we could just make a field trip to the ag building because they always have puppies.
Yeah,
so we could just have the puppy there.
Really?
Yeah, I could just drop her off at Bailey's classroom.
Why do they have puppies there? I didn't know that.
It's
Just allowed to have animals
Okay.
there.
There's
Okay.
always animals
Because
out
it's
there.
part of our
Well, I know that. I just know.
Like Shapiro had puppies there last year. Like they
Okay.
always have their dogs.
I didn't know the puppies thing. The puppies angle threw me off. I knew like other animals. That's one way to get around it too. Class field trip. But in terms of the government class, it could work if it's falling within those guidelines. If that
Then
helps.
the dog is big. Last month.
Well, in a month maybe it won't be as big, I guess. So I hope that answers the question. Today we're gonna stumble through economics and we'll get through. And I say stumble through because it is a challenge. I think for a lot of kids, economics can be that challenge. And we'll get to the different spectrums tomorrow. And then Wednesday is the assignment. Jonathan, I got your email. I have yet to look over it. I got it this morning. I think right. Okay. But tomorrow I should. Yeah, by tomorrow I'll give you my feedback. And also for Olivia, I got your final draft, right? And if anybody has their final drafts, just as a reminder, I do prefer a hard copy on Wednesday, right? Like when we get into class, sort of keeping the collegiate vibe of like, here's my actual draft. If we're in dismissal or if you're in quarantine, you can always send in like the actual electronic copy and stuff. But If not, let's try to do the hard copy. That is always the plan. And Jonathan will give you feedback there. Olivia was good. I think I gave you some good feedback last week. Sweet.
So the first draft is due on Wednesday?
No. The final thing you're turning in on Wednesday, right? She had sent me a first draft from before. Maybe that's what you heard. Yeah. Now she has her final thing. Ken, I will give you. Oh, wrong class. I will give you a point for your generosity. Miguel turned it down and said, "No, get that chicken out of my face." But you, that's still generous. Okay, so I think that's it for asking. Oh, voting. We have two options here. I've already had the other classes vote. I'm curious. I won't tell you. I won't spoil the vote or front load it. But I want you guys to vote on if you want the test. Right? Currently scheduled. It's on the 22nd. But on this 22nd, we are not in school physically. We're in school virtually, right? This should sound familiar. So 21st and 22nd, you guys will be in dismissal like the whole district is, right? As is scheduled, you will have the test on the 22nd. It will unlock, you'll take it, and then you'll submit it, if we do it that day, via Canvas. So my question for you is, 4th hour, would you prefer to do it on that 22nd, where pros and cons of that are, it's online and you still have to do something with this class on the 21st and 22nd. That's a con, but also the pro is you're not going to be as crammed for time. And I guess the pro is you could be unethical and cheat if you want. That's not a good pro. That's not a good pro at all. But I mean, I'm saying the obvious that it is an ethics thing where it will unlock. You have to take it on your honor, follow the guidelines, and then submit it, right? But there are some pros in terms of being a little later, not as crammed. The con is you have to sort of be aware of it after we're not here. So those are give and take on that. Brent?
Are you one of those teachers? Because I've had several teachers will take a quiz and they're like, you took 2 minutes on that question, you obviously cheated.
No. I probably to a detriment, I will assume the best, and yeah, probably to a detriment. So no, I'm not that type who will look at the actual timestamp and say, wait a second. Yeah, probably to a detriment, I'm too lenient that way. So, but in terms of the guidelines for when it's due, what I'm not lenient on, I am one of those teachers that the actual time gate, it closes at 11:59, right, on Tuesday. So if you miss it, it's SOL, that's the time gate. So there is that element, right? Unless you prearranged something with me or whatever. But I am stickler on that. Yes, Calvin.
Wait, so is there a time limit on the test?
Yeah, there is. But this is more of the, going back to Brent's question, this is more of the on your honor thing. It suggests that the actual test will take the class time period of 55 minutes, right? And that's the time window that you have. But it will be unlocked for the whole day. So could you be a little bit funky and be like, well, it took 3 hours as I checked with other friends? You could. I don't want you to do that. So I'm not the stickler who will be like, wait a second, they logged in this time and they turned in this time and therefore you cheated. I'm not going to do that to you. But there is a time allotment that I would suggest. I'm begging, I'm pleading 55 minutes, like a normal class hour. Does that make sense? So that's what we have on the 22nd. The other option is, let's take it in class on the 18th. We're going to cram a little bit more on this. So it's next Friday. Wow. That means that we would do more work in class and go speedier, might not do as many breaks next week to get it done. And hey, the good on that is you get it done, right? You don't need to check in this class on 21st or 22nd for government. You really can start your break in that way. The con is you got to go a little bit faster. Maybe kids who are worried about the first test, I'm worried, I want to have as much time as I can, etc. So, those are the pros and cons for both. Are there any questions before you guys vote on this? Jorgen?
What's the test breakdown?
Sorry, say it one more time.
What's the test breakdown? Multiple choice, essay questions?
Yeah, so if I've had you for World Civ, we're upping the ante because we're adding more elements to it. So there is still the free response section, right? It's not as long as it was for World Civ, for instance. But you have a free response section. You also have a matching. You have a fill in the blank, and you have a true and false. True or false. I don't need you to write down why it's true or why it's false, right? So that's the breakdown, those 4 sections. If that helps answer your question. Hello.
Hey, you have this student here.
Yes.
Can I talk to her real quick?
Yes. Miguel, don't eat her chicken nuggets.
I'm gonna be-
Her chicken minuscule tenders.
Oh, it's already done.
Oh.
That's my
Um,
backpack.
So, yes, Jordan, that's the breakdown, right? A little bit different from World Civ. There is some more objective ones that, like, I'm asking you, you gotta know these things, okay? We will do a review, so hopefully that helps. Any other questions on it? Jenna? Hannah?
So if we win that thing, does that include on the test? Will you get rid of it for 4th hour? Or do we just not do a section of that?
Right, so, okay, I see what you're saying. Shifting past this incentive cycle, but to the next one.
Oh, okay.
If you guys win that one, right?
Yeah.
So
Let's
starting,
say we win that one.
let's say you win that one. Then that means you will have half the test off, in that it's still included in your final grade, right? But you won't have to do the, I usually try to choose the harder ones that you don't have to do. So the free response in this one and probably the matching.
And do you get rid of it and then just put it on 4th hour, or do we just not do it?
So you just don't do it.
Oh, okay.
So for 4th hour, like when you take the test on Struct, you like don't do section 3 and section 4, right? You've already got that full credit. Does it answer that question?
Yeah, that.
Okay, Cal.
Can you make us, we can still take the questions and if we get it right, we get the credit?
I know, I think Jorgen was alluding to this before, and I think he rightfully instructed you guys on the assignment, that's where it benefits you. Is because you can do the whole thing and get like not just 10 extra credit points, but like more if you do the whole thing. On the test, I'll grade it, but I'm not gonna give you extra for doing it, if that makes sense. So, okay, any questions before we vote? So now let's vote. All those in favor of taking the test on the 18th, raise your hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. All those in favor of taking the test on the 22nd, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay. All right. That's where the other classes are leaning. So plan on, I'll do the final tally, but plan on taking the test on 22nd, right? You don't need to check in on the 21st, just, I'll probably have a review uploaded on YouTube you can look at, and I'll tell you, like, just Unit 1 government, you can look up that. But yes, the 22nd is when the test is unlocked and due. Okay, is that good? Cool, housekeeping is done. We left off. We were talking about the direness, if you will, of anarchy. I was thinking about what Stephen said, and I don't want to downplay the fact that there is a chance that individuals, especially with a small number, similar culture, similar background, similar upbringing, could be on an island-type country and work in an anarchy where people aren't killing each other. Right? I mean, you were alluding to it last week about how anarchy's definition that we wrote down seemed really dire, right? I'm not imagining this. Okay. You're right in that there is the chance that can happen with similar culture, similar upbringing, that people can have like unwritten rules and just sort of coexist in that way. Maybe generationally it might die out after a while where like tensions rise again and something happens. But it could happen. Anarchy does not have to be death and destruction. It's usually, just like oligarchy usually oppresses, right? It doesn't have to. So that's a good point. I think that's where we left off with, right? Anarchy? Okay. And I think Allie was saying this too, the purge. Like, stereotypically, when you think of anarchy, like the movies where it's like anything can go for the day or whatever, like kill anybody, that's the idea. Lord of the Flies type thing where people are poor old piggy killed and stuff like that. Okay. Have you guys read The Lord of the Flies?
No.
Okay, we've had some people, I'm just curious, who here through, I guess, previous English classes, I guess? Who here has read The Lord of the Flies?
I've heard of it. I've heard of it.
Wow. Oh. Stephen, when did you read it? What grade? Let me ask that.
I didn't read it in school.
Oh, that makes it even worse. Not that you read it, but I just mean, wow, I would have thought that would have been.
What is it about?
It's about.
The British boys stranded on an island that start killing each other.
Yes.
That's basically it.
That's really it.
I bet you could have read it to us, and I just would have been like, I don't really care.
Like a plane crash or something.
Yeah. Yep.
And so they're all
Yep.
stranded on this island, and they try and form like a little government or whatever,
Yeah.
and then they end up all killing each other.
Wait a minute.
AKA high school without death. No, but I mean, like, really, these social things and what human behavior is, and yeah, absolutely,
We
absolutely.
learned about that like kind of when we did this casting assignment in like the 7th grade.
Castaway.
And
Okay.
we talked about that.
Okay.
Because I remember because he was like stranded on an island, but then he was relating other stories to it.
Okay.
So that
Maybe he was. Jen's
'cause
like,
I remember
maybe-
something about that.
maybe I
'Cause he,
did.
like, government on the island.
Yeah. Okay.
Makes sense.
It's just one of those sort of classical readings, but I'm glad you read on your own. Stop throwing things around, Jonathan. And yeah, that idea of it devolving into chaos rather quickly. Human nature seems to be more brutal than we like to think, and so I guess credit to the founding for them actually recognizing that and not being too naive, I guess, even though people don't like to hear that, you know. That is something. Okay, so on this last page, name game part 3, economics. Woo! So we finished off with government types. Monique, you have all the different government types really for this assignment, going from extreme authoritarian to, well, nothing. For 5 points, who can describe for me, looking at that government spectrum, why is it that on the left-hand side, I have had it fork out? So you got extreme authoritarianism, right, Eliza, right there, and then it forks out. On one hand, it could go to communism. We say that sort of government. And on the other hand, it says utopia. Why have it's not just me, but why have political scientists oftentimes with the governmental spectrum forked out at that point? Any thoughts for 5, Eliza?
Because one of those is corrupt and the other one is more pure, like an ideal.
Right. I think, okay, so you got 2 of the 5. That one is very much darker. We've had historically bad stuff with it. But the other one seems on paper really, really good. Great.
Because everyone's equal.
Okay, so now we're seeing similarities. So one's like the nice side of it, and the one side's like, ooh, the really bad side of it. Okay, we got 3 of the 5, Bryn.
Are these like two of like the more impossible ones to form?
Say that one more time.
Are these two like more of the impossible ones to form?
Yeah, now we're getting to it. Okay, so 4 out of the 5 points. Like, when you go that way and you're like, authoritarian, but we want everybody equal, you might hear the term, I don't want to say utopia, but like this perfect idea, this commune. But history has shown us that when people say, let's form this type of commune where we're equal and it's ideal, that they might think it's going to go that way, but we've seen historically it go which way? Communism in that sense, where inevitably the parties like decision making for everybody at the same time to be equal is very difficult to do. Marxism's problem is just that. Could it happen? It could. We just haven't seen it happen yet. And so that means that a party rises to the front and says, hey, we'll make decisions for you, we'll equalize everything. So that's where it shoots out. So when people start hearing utopia, your mind should be going like, wait, I've heard the song and dance before, right? Like, that seems like it's going to go to communism. Okay, so we got 5 points there, very nice. For another 5 points, on the right-hand side, who can help describe? I've got one angle here. Olivia, I've got anarchy, right? And the other angle, we have fascism. So why, say, Stephen?
Like the maximum government control versus like the less.
This is where it gets funny, right? Because you're like, wait a second, wait, here, hold on. This spectrum is supposed to have sort of government control over here, right? And like less government control. So why would fascism? Because fascism is the ultimate, I got power, you suck, deal with it. So like, you're right to say, wait, those are sort of opposites, like anarchy and fascism. Any other thoughts on that? You said before that communism and utopia were trying to be equal, right? How could anarchy turn into fascism? I think Emma's even alluded to this sometimes.
Someone raising to the top.
Say it one more time.
Always a bigger fish.
There's always a bigger fish, right? I mean, so, Jorgen, we historically have seen when people are like, hey, anarchy, no rules, just sort of regulate your own thing and determine your own outcome if you want. We don't have to have anything written down. You should have like red flags going up, like, wait. That means eventually the bigger fish is gonna come and like rise to the front and say, now that we're all anarchists, I'm gonna make the rules for you. And that's like, do you get what I'm saying there? If there's no rules, that means the warlord will come to the top and kill everybody. That's, again, a dire way to look at it, and Edward's like, yeah, warlords. but that's the idea. Okay, good discussion there. Jorgen, great, very good. Now, a couple other ideas. Your thought homework. Some of you were good in saying in the past, but I'm thinking current day. Can you guys think of any failed state? Not your thought homework like THOT. I sincerely hope that wasn't your thought homework. I really thought Tyler was saying like thought homework. But
No, I thought we won. I said we don't know until tomorrow. How did you get thought out of that?
Okay, again, Jenna, this is me assuming the worst of students. Okay. Okay. All right, touche. I'm sorry.
You would do that then.
I would do that. Okay.
What generation are you?
I am Generation Y. Ouch. I'm Generation Y. And Eliza, that was such like a weighted thing. Like, are you like 85? I'm Generation Y. Yep. So I'm like. Anyway, I'm an old fart. Okay. With that said, your THOUGHT provoking homework is referring to a failed state. The UN and other political scientists call it when a country isn't maybe anarchy. Like they might have an actual definition of government, but you go in that country, you go within the state's borders, and you're like, this is just cash high. This is, sorry. I'm sorry, that was really bad. I'm sorry. That was bad. I'm sorry. I am, because I subjected you to that. But you go into, right down in the borders of it, and you're like, this is a joke. There's no control. Can you guys think of any examples current day? Steve?
Venezuela?
Ooh, they have gotten really close to that in the last 5 years with Maduro. I'll give you a point there. The UN hasn't called them a failed state. But yeah, they've gotten close. They've gotten really close. Hyperinflation, protests, dissolving of different government structures, that's really close. Hasn't gotten to that threshold yet of being said, like, even the UN's like, it's a lost cause. Like, you can give medical care, you can give charity to this country, but like, it's just gonna be absorbed by warlords. So not Venezuela, though it's close. Any other examples? So Cuba, you could say in the early 90s when people were like on rafts, like coming here in desperation to live, you could say similar to Venezuela, had hard times. They didn't get to that threshold because then Cuba, Fidel stepped down, his brother took over. It wasn't as bad as communist, or as bad of a communist country as it used to be. But I like that idea, similar to Venezuela in that way. You said Yugoslavia, I think, before, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's accurate in the past. You could look at all the, I always get this mixed up. The Balkan states, and not the Baltic states. The Balkan states were in many ways seen as just a hot garbage fire. You know, at the end of the communist regime and reign. Yugoslavia could have been. Stephen, do you have another idea?
Sudan?
Oh, now we're getting warmer, literally and figuratively. So Sudan has been saved. I'm saying this not out of Jenna assuming the worst.
Are you sure?
I am. I shouldn't even give the disclaimer because then you're thinking
Yeah, what the heck,
you
man?
shouldn't have done it. Your car, how's it going? Is it better? Did they fix it, or is
That
it?
doesn't fix anything. How is your car doing?
She's
That's
woman-splaining for me right now.
You don't have the right time to. Just kidding,
Wow.
that's a joke.
Wow. Jenna. I'll ask for it. Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad on both accounts that responses are good. And it's fixed? Sorry, Jenna, can you ask me, is it fixed?
Well, guess what? The other week, I wrecked into a car, and you didn't ask me if I was fine. So, thanks.
Jonathan's on to something there. You didn't just come in late to class, and then Wait, no, that's not the answer.
Okay,
Anyway,
Government.
yes, thank you for giving me the permission. So Sudan is funny in that it's horrible. Sudan, Stephen's right, that it's got close to it. They had to separate the country to where they avoided being called a failed state. They were super close because the whole genocide in Darfur and stuff like that. Like it got really, really close.
Yeah, you know, that.
Yeah. Let me put it this way: if the UN had not separated Sudan and South Sudan, yeah, you could say at this point they'd be a failed state. So then, any other thoughts, Bree?
Somalia.
There we go! Ding, 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 ding. What was that noise? Okay, underneath Anarchy, let's put down real quick, just in parentheses or whatever, just put down Somalia. Somalia. Somalia.
So how do you spell Somalia?
Somalia.
What if you spelled it wrong? Ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
What was that?
What if you spelled it wrong and I wrote it wrong?
Somalia. No, that. She can check too. That's fine too. But Somalia, that's the example right now that currently the UN says right now we have a failed state where you go there and it's so bad because the warlords basically control everything. It doesn't matter if Allie, you and your family are like, we're going to give 8,000 pairs of shoes to people who need, like you could have airlift drops there and they would be stolen, sold on the black market, and none of the people would actually get it. It's atrocious. It's super sad. Somalia represents that failed state where the UN, other EU, the US, we don't know what to do with Somalia. It's that sad in terms of let's hold new elections. It's like you can't even hold elections. It's sort of not a post-apocalyptic Mad Max, but as close as currently we have. They called it a failed state, which is really rough moniker, but probably deserved.
I know we've been talking this a lot, but what is the definition of failed state again?
Yeah, okay, that's fair, if like I mention it. So we know, what's a state again? What's a state?
Yes.
Country or group that helps.
Country or group that helps represent itself. It's a sort of self-governing entity that has boundaries and borders. So it could be Phoenix, Arizona, or it could be Somalia, right? And that's a state, and the failed part is the government, it's their failed government, and like the boundaries are there on a map, but once you enter it in terms of governance, it's just such a joke. You can't really control things. So that's what we mean by saying failed. And it's a weird moniker, but I sincerely hope like teachers would never like label a student like, well, that's just the failed student. And they're still in class. That'd be really rough.
So
Like
is
they're
that
in,
in school or?
what?
I had to say that.
Bryn, what'd you say?
I had to say.
Oh, Eliza would never say that about me. That I was the failed student in school.
Well, I mean, you look like
You would
Shrek.
never
in the-
play her.
Oh, we're going back there. That scab is healed. She's like gonna rip that back off. It's Mr. Shrek.
You want to be Shrek or Goofy? Which one do you want to choose?
All right, so Shrek really threw me off there again. So Anarchy, Somalia, Ali, does that help out in terms of like failed states? Sudan was really close. Yugoslavia was. Venezuela's been very close. If they have like another decade of this, then yeah. If you've seen the movie Black Hawk Down, like that chronicles is just a joke. Like military intervention there, it's just such a mess that everybody just walks away and just hopes it solves its own problems. And in that way, Eliza, that was me growing up. Thank you very much. So I just got a little personal and sad. That was bad. Okay, here we go. Name game, part 3. Types of economies. We finished up government. Definition of economy or economics. Anybody want to take a stab at this definition, Jen?
I have a question.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so like, that econ class, is that based on like economics and stuff, like in business? and
Yeah.
stuff?
So I think Mr. Ender teaches Econ 1010.
Yeah.
Or yeah. 1010, I think. The entry econ class. Most of you will have to take either a type of stats or type of econ as like a gen ed credit most of the time. And so that class covers both macro and micro. Microeconomics is more like business to business, like how can you run an effective business. Macro is how does a country run its stuff, bigger picture. So they cover both. Here, right now, we're going to cover macro, like big picture. And then the last section of the class, we're going to cover micro. But when we hear the term economics, a lot of kids like tune out because it's like math and weird and this is social science, I want to do math. But we're going to stumble through it. On that note, definition of economy. Any thoughts? Running of the what?
Like the businesses, like the running of the countries, like how they run.
Okay, so what are they running? You're saying the businesses or how the countries run their businesses, right?
Yeah, or like their.
Why would they need to care?
economy.
You're right, but why would they need to care about how they run their businesses?
Or they're gonna fail as a community type of thing.
Why would they fail? If all the businesses fail, why would that make the community fail? You're right.
Because who pays taxes? Like that's how they're
Pay.
stuff. You know what I mean?
What are they paying? What's this thing you're talking about?
Taxes, because you have to pay to like
What
run
are-
the country.
I like what Brendan's saying here. Money, right?
Oh my.
You have. Yeah, that's what you're right. But I know it's sort of common sense, but we often forget that economy. The reason we care about how businesses are run and how they manage things are they're dealing with money, and is money. I don't know.
Doesn't grow on trees.
There it is. That's sort of the old man saying, I'm not saying you're an old man. No. See, that's not. I'm really.
Yeah, that
This is not going well. I'm not helping myself out. But the idea is it doesn't grow on trees. So it's a finite resource, right? Like are there any other types of economies, not just money, but other things that are like finite, rare, seldom, that you have to manage wisely? So in addition to money, any other thoughts, Stephen?
Like precious metals.
Yeah, precious minerals, liquids too in that regard, any resource that way, yeah, those are economies. Generally speaking, like Jenna is saying, it's the economy of money. So let's write this down under our definition of economy. The management of scarce, the management of scarce, the management of scarce resources. And I will say scarce is a weird word. Okay, even when I read it up on the board, I'm like, scarce? Scarce resources. We'll say resources first. Management of scarce resources. You'll also hear it defined as like allocation. I feel like at Green Canyon you've got a ton of kids whose parents are economic professors, which are awesome. But I want to make sure I give you the correct definitions here too. So management or allocation, distribution of scarce resources. Now, the main thing we talk about in this class is not necessarily precious minerals or oil or natural gas or whatever, but instead it's going to be money. So in parentheses you can put the almighty dollar bill or the dollar sign or whatever, right? Management of scarce resources, parentheses money, as we break out in the song. But the idea of this, and I think, was it grape or, oh no, oh geez, no, we're not making it rain. But grape, or somebody said back there, how scarce is money? Somebody said that.
I did.
And I really like that thought. Before we get into how money can be scarce, I would submit to you that natural resources can be scarce. I would submit to you that mineral. Get to class. There was somebody that may or may not know you that was trying to intimidate me by looking in. Brent.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Okay, so like when a country has money,
Yeah.
like like the government has money, where do they get it from? Because like we make money or whatever. Like we like print money.
Emma,
It's made up.
there is. Okay.
Like what the heck?
So even in Econ 1010, they won't actually talk about the system. Sometimes in extemporaneous they do. I will get to it, but you're asking, because it makes your brain hurt and makes you think the world's a lie. But we will get to where countries base their currency and what they base it off of. Okay?
It is.
But wait, no, okay.
I will answer that question. We've got to build up to it.
Okay,
It's
but
a very
like,
valid question.
you know how like they have their own budget or whatever, like they're like, oh, well,
Yeah.
this takes
Yeah.
more money, this
Yeah.
takes money. But it's like, the question that you will answer, but like, I just don't understand where
Yeah.
it's coming from and how we're getting paid,
Yeah.
by the government.
Totally.
Because there's no one really in charge of that.
Thank you. That's exactly what you're leading to. We talk about government things of how like the UN can't really tell somebody else what to do because there's no big like Leviathan monster telling people what to do. Monetarily, there is a little bit more control because people care about money more than people, I guess. But they still, you don't know who it is, right? And we'll get to it. These are very valid questions. Yes, great. We'll go, Greg.
Kayla hit me.
I knew it. She did me first.
Kayla, great job. Okay, Bryn.
Okay, backtracking. Like earlier in class, like did you say that China reduced their money so it's cheaper for countries to buy stuff?
China reduces their own currency.
Wait,
So
how is that allowed?
it's not internationally allowed, but we have not held them accountable for it. Correct. Like people like.
I'm just talking about it right now. Might as well just keep going.
Okay. I will answer it now. Let me first explain that economy isn't just about money and natural resources. It's also about time and energy, right? So when you hear like, if Calvin is drinking 18 Red Bulls and decides I don't need sleep ever, I'm fine. Those Canadian experiments that showed that people like die from cardiac arrest when they're kept up, that's all fake news. You will just continue to just keep awake at all times. Your mom's going to sit down at one point and say, Calvin, honey, I'm worried about your economy of energy because you only have so much per day and there's going to be consequences, right? You got to manage those things. So in that sense of time, there isn't a lot of 24 hours. Like everybody objectively can see that sort of time scale. Does that make sense? We get that objective scale. Same thing for, if Navy's got 5 boyfriends and her dad says Navy, you need to partition your time out more appropriately and manage the economy of time and energy because you ain't got time for 5 boyfriends. Okay? And she's like, I can make it work. Like you can't defy the laws of physics and be in different places at the same time, right? So there's different economies of time and space. Wow, we're getting into like theory of relativity. But the idea is like those are objective parameters. We get that? I think we get that. Money is funny because it's all based on what we call natural resources, precious minerals. As Stephen was saying, gold and silver, there's only a finite amount of it, and anything is only worth something if it is more or less rare usually. Does that make sense? So gold and silver have been the currency's backers to answer Jenna's questions. You were answering this. That if I were to keep it very simple in a government class, a country's currency is more or less an IOU. Anybody have like a dollar bill or a $5 bill or something like that? You guys have in your car. Anybody have it? Jordan's loaded. Okay. Whoa, 20. Okay, Chris 20. And you assume the worst in me.
Yeah, because you called me an old man. This is your head.
Called him Shrek.
You know what? That's because he sometimes acts like a Shrek.
Sometimes you have the accent for it though. Do your best Scottish accent.
Nope, not gonna do it. Okay, so the $20. Thank you, Jordan. Guys, this is an IOU. This is an IOU. Meaning, in theory, you can take this to, and stick with me in theory, to Fort Knox, which you've heard of. Maybe it used to be an actual Federal Reserve protector of what they call gold or silver bullion. Okay? So Fort Knox was basically a lockdown. You go there and you put the country's stacks of gold bars. Let's keep it very simple. So in theory, you could take this IOU, which is a promissory note from the Department of Treasury, and you can go and say, oh, thank you, Fort Knox. I need $20 worth of gold dust, please. And they go, and they blow it out to you, and you catch it. And you say, thank you. That is basically what currency is based off of. However, that's not the case since 1970 or so. Okay? The U.S. doesn't use, and maybe Jorgen's word, doesn't use a gold or silver hard currency bullion. When I say bullion, I'm not talking about like the chicken cube things you put in your soups and stuff. Not that. This is meaning, and the term is the same idea of it's a hard, tangible thing that you can base it off of. A country, if they print more money, if they have gold or silver on it, that means that it's making the money worth less. So when you go and take it in Fort Knox, you get less of the gold dust, right? So you want your IOU notes to be somehow connected to that currency. Actual gold bars, silver bars. That makes sense so far.
Wait, don't we owe like some countries?
Oh yeah. We'll get there. Which you're smart to think, wait a second, how does this apply to other countries? So that's our standard. If it worked that way for the whole world, then we'd be easy, we'd be good. You have a conversion rate. In the 70s, the US changed it where, as Jorgen knows, we went to what's called the Fiat System.
What is that?
The US and other developed countries, so the G8, the group of 8, and the G20, the group of 20, are countries that base their currency not on their gold or silver. They've abandoned them. Meaning Fort Knox doesn't have any gold or silver in it anymore. Like dead alien bodies, But Emma, they don't have that as their Federal Reserve. What does the US base its money off of now? The fiat system is an idea.
There you go.
Great. It means that money, exactly, it really is. It's based on the country's concept of your workforce. So numerically, there are some numbers attached to it, how many people can be in the workforce. That also means the ability for people to buy things, the ability for the country to buy things, so GDP, GNP are based in it as well, the capacity for your workforce in the country as a whole. And with that algorithm, they can say, okay, your fiat system is doing well enough to where we think your currency is pretty stable. If everybody in the economy were to start losing their jobs and businesses pull out, that means that your money would become worth less than it was before, because now the hard currency isn't gold or silver bars, but it's about the idea of the human spirit.
So essentially we're idiots.
There's some real concern. It's, Allie, it's very when you look really hard at it, it becomes like a cloud, and there's nothing there, so to speak. And so you say we're idiots in the sense of, yeah, like you're playing around with fire. The more you look at currency, and so then the idea is we'll just print more of it because it's all based on an idea, right? So there's some problems with it. Econ 2000 level courses will get into why they went with the fiat system versus the gold and silver bullion system. One angle is that they want to make it simpler, but maybe it's idiotic at the same time, right? So that's what it's currently based off of. The question then becomes is how do other countries play with that? Bryn, it goes back to your question of China. The fiat system is also what we base our understanding of their money is off of too. They're not basing it on gold or silver. So the way that they've hurt their own currency is they have bought tons of stock or bonds in US dollars to artificially raise all of our money's worth that way. Mind you, stock market's based on nothing. It's based on ideas, right? It's so scary, but China has bought artificially more and more stock. Like, we love the dollar. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Aren't you gonna like buy bonds in your own yen? No, no, no. And the dollar's great, so that encourages US companies to go over here to China. And so we are not owing money to them in the sense of like, right, you asked before, we owe money to China. Yes, we do, but not in the sense of like they bailed us out and gave us money for loans and we pay them back. They owe us, we owe them because they own our dollar. If we stop trade with them, they can pull out their bonds from our dollar. And yes, it'll hurt their economy, but it'll collapse the dollar too. Does that make sense? Yeah, right, let's go. So, Bryn, I hope that answers that question, and Jenna, I hope that answers that part too, and Allie, the idiotic thing could be there, right? Because it's sort of based on myth of what's this dollar worth. Emma, did you have a question?
I don't know if it's relevant, but is the system based off of like the ability of the workforce, like the potential, or what it actually puts out? Does that make a difference?
Yes. I'm not trying to be like obfuscating here and making it difficult. It can be on one hand what they've done, right? Think about credit limit. It's credit limit, right? Like a bank looks at you and be like, well, you're working, you work so much time, and we think you have capacity to do this, we'll lend you this much money. A fiat system is based on that too. Now there is one body that has some control internationally called the International Monetary Fund, and that's as close as you can get to the Illuminati right there. I mean, that is, because they will dictate, they'll sort of say, hey country, you're messing up with like your fiat, what you're measuring it in. But yeah, I hope that answers some of it, both of what you've done and what you could do. Yes?
Okay, so like when you said that like our money becomes a lesser value, it's like basically that's not whose money it is. It's for
You're so, okay, I'm not gonna get in this fight because now I'm gonna lose. Nope, 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 I'm gonna.
Sorry for not this money. But anyways.
Jane would never do it, yes.
So you said that our money would be like less worth.
Yeah.
Like, so what I picture my head when you say that is like a $20 bill is actually worth 15 bucks. Like, so what do you? So basically,
Yeah.
like you take a Indian dollar or whatever.
Yep.
Why do they make it lesser value than our money? Why can't they just be the same?
Based on the fiat system. Again, I don't want to say the fiat because it'll make it too confusing. Go back to the gold and silver standard.
Yeah.
They're
Why
saying
would
that
it be less?
India has less gold in their country's Federal Reserve than we do. So they have a bigger population than we do, right? They have more money and currency than we do. So
oh,
that
no, I'm at Indian dollars are worth more than ours. Cause like $1 there is like $50. I can't
Right.
remember.
so the exchange rate is favorable for us. Let's put it in perspective. $1 in the U.S. is equal to 4,000 Cambodian real. Okay, so you're like, wow, that's bad for Cambodia in the sense that their money isn't worth as much, right? You have to get 4,000 of their real to equal $1. That means in Cambodia's situation, India's in the same way. It's not as bad as 4,000, it's hundreds or whatever. Your brother served a mission, you might know. But the idea is when you, for India or Cambodia, the exchange rate isn't as good because for India or Cambodia in this case, they don't have as much gold or silver in their actual Federal Reserve. So that makes their money, like for them to get an ounce of gold, if you will, and let's be simple, from their Federal Reserve. In the US we give $100 or whatever, and boom, here it is, and we get like that. In Cambodia they got a 40,000 or 40,000, I can't remember. But you have to exchange that. You have to spend a lot more to get the same. Hence their money being worth less. They don't have as much gold in their reserve as we do.
So is that why like so many people are more poor here?
In short, that's part of it. The other part of it's called purchasing power parity, which is another metric that looks at a country to see how far your money goes. And that's based on domestic factors of, like in Australia, it just costs a lot more money to get certain things than it does in the US. Not because their economy stinks or that they don't have as much gold, but just differences. So it's both, yeah, that's why other countries can be poor, is they don't have as much gold or silver to back it on. And also domestic factors there too. Yes, does that explain the exchange rate of like why it is that it's so many more dollars to our dollar? Is they don't have as much gold there. It takes more to get that same amount. And in this case, the gold and silver is the capacity for the country to work. Because international, let's say India, you got a lot of people, yeah, that's cool. But we don't think you have the infrastructure to have businesses and jobs and stuff. Right? Okay, this Econ 2000 levels. There you go. We explained it, Allie and Emma as asked. Let's do this. Okay, if you guys let me go today without a break, I will give you 6 points.
Yes.
Yeah.
Will you take it?
Yes.
Landry is really concerned about it.
No, she's not.
Is that okay, Landry?
Yes.
Yeah,
What did you agree to? Nobody help her out.
if we don't have a break, we get 6 points.
I was wrong again. Monique and Landry have proven me wrong now twice. And yes, Jen, I know. I've assumed the worst.
This is your problem. You just assume the worst with everyone. But
Dude, yeah.
Jen's gonna have like an intervention. She's gonna come in here and be like, "We need to talk." Okay.
That's a teacher, man. Go light on.
There we go. So, economy. There are 3 main ways macro, as a country looks at, not business to business, we'll get to that later. But the country says, okay, we have to determine how we're going to distribute these sources. The gold and silver is finite. The dollars, therefore, are finite. You can print more of it, but if it's not based on the actual bullion, then you're in trouble. Okay? So they've got to then ask, what can we do to manage these things effectively? There are 3 main macro ways to do it. In no particular order, communism. What's communism? Brent?
Is it like when they're all, every land is like a public land, you get paid based off like how much you actually need, but it doesn't work because someone's always eating like a king.
Right. So I love the idea that there's no private property. Like, very well said. There's no private property. And that throws people off. Like, you don't own anything personally. You don't. So then the question becomes, for some more points, who controls the distribution of resources in communism? John?
The government controls it.
Let's get specific. You're right, but who controls the government?
The party.
The party in control. I know we often think of them in it's the same thing, right? But it's the party in control. So guys, the first thing you're going to write down here underneath communism is the party controls the management of resources. The party controls the management of resources. The party controls the management of resources. Red Solo cups. Ho ho!
that's a bad pun.
Wow. You give yourself a point for that one.
Oh, you feel bad.
You make me feel like the puppy that came out.
What did you say right
She
now?
said, I'm not telling you, I'm telling everybody else. You should write down the party controls the management of resources. I'll say it slower for everybody else. The party controls the management of resources.
Don't let her break her down.
Stay strong. Okay, but I hope that makes sense of like they choose, right? And in this case, there's no private property. So let's imagine you're on this island. On this assignment, you don't have to actually choose the economy. You don't. But McAllie, they have all these resources, and if you crash land on this, you have a big pile of resources from the plane, maybe some old bags of Doritos and some shoes and clothing. The party controls the management of resources, and the party then, let's say that the three nicest people in the class, Miguel, Kenna, Jaden, Tyler. Okay, so.
Oh, yeah.
So nice.
Yeah.
I'm not a math teacher.
That's good.
So let's say you four, you are the nice people now. You guys become the party members, and you guys get to decide. You sit out, you camp out this whole pile of resources, and people come by, and Afia's like, hey, I need some new shoes, and Tyler's like, yeah, you're nice. Okay, we'll give it to you, because everybody's equal. And Emma comes by, and Miguel's like, yeah, you're nice too. Here's that bag you need, right? Jonathan comes by and gives Ken a side eye. And he, and Ken is like, oh, you need some bags of chips? And he's like, yeah, I'm hungry. Too bad. And she's, guys, communism, as Bryn was saying, there's no private property. The party controls the resources. And ultimately, they say it's equal, but some are more equal than others. Right? I mean, that's a problem that we have. So, with that said, let's write it down this way. Second thing, if business fails, so, Christian, let's say that these four wonderful individuals,
No, that is rude.
they decide, you know what? You don't get to own this business of coconut stand, but we four together, we say, we like your work ethic, and we will put you as a steward responsible over the coconut stand for the island, okay? They give you the coconut resources, the wood to build the stand and all this stuff. Do you own any of those things? No, but your job is to do this. And let's say that they say, hey, you come up with the flavors and all this, and he's successful. Maddie, people are going to buy coconuts for him. But one day he says, you know what, I've come up with a good idea. Kitty litter flavored coconut. Got it. And Christian's like, let's go. And he's advertising this, and the four party members are like, I don't know about this. Is it going to succeed?
No.
Tyler's supportive, but
You'd be the one drinking it.
I'm forced now. I have to. I hope I'm not the guy buying this, but you sell it, but nobody's buying. Tyler buys it out of pity, and I'm forced to drink it, but that's it. Nobody's buying this, Allie. It's pretty sad. The business has failed, right? So the question then is, who has to fix it then? The party. It's the party. It's not Christian, right? So guys, if business fails, the party has to fix it. If business fails, the party has to fix it. Okay. If business fails, the party has to fix it. Let's talk about some pros and cons of this, and then we'll probably end there. I know we're living in a capitalist-ish society, so I get this is different. There are some pros to communism. Forget government. I'm talking about like everybody's equally distributed in resources, the party makes decisions. What are some potential pros of this? Jonathan?
There are no like poor.
Yeah, I mean, the potential pro is there's always a safety net, right? Like you're not gonna die. Like in communism, well, they might kill you, but the idea is Christian, whose business failed, and this kitty litter idea was sorry, it sucked. You will still get another job. You'll get another chance. It'll be reallocated over here, or they'll give you, right? Does that make sense? You don't have true ownership over it, so there is a safety net. Absolutely. So under communism, you guys can write down some of these pros and cons, but one is, there's a safety net. Great.
There's no discrimination against people and like
Right.
disabled people.
So in theory, there's this equal thing of each according to their need, right? So if you have a big family, like the party's going to distribute resources, let's help you out. If you have a small family, you're going to get less, but it's probably equitable, right? Like they're trying to balance it. And gender equality in communism in general is a lot better than it is in other capitalist societies, because it's like, man, woman doesn't matter, like, we just sort of do it equally. So the party has to fix it. There's a safety net. Cons. What are some cons of communism? And there are several. Caleb?
You don't get to decide what you have or want.
Yes, there's no private property. I mean, like, you have no personal ownership over it. So, like, in communism, you might think you own that jean jacket, but the party has allowed you to wear that jean jacket, right? And they can take it away whenever you want. So you making a decision, you can't decide, like, I'm going to open up my own coconut stand. They're going to tell you, Christian, like, we're telling you to open it up. So there isn't that personal thing. You guys mentioned, too, about corruption. I think Brett was saying, like, inevitably, like, people, we say it's equal, but then, like, I like Emma more than I like Calvin, so Emma gets more, right? Like, there's those things. So corruption is there as a con. You don't have ownership over it. Kayla, you're right. There's a couple others. But we can get to them tomorrow. Okay. Yeah. I love it. I probably encourage it. No, I hope my daughter's the same way. I love it. That's just the back and forth. And great questions today. I hope that makes sense though about economy. Yeah. Because you're looking at the dollar and you're like, wait a second. What is this? Yeah.
But also for the
Yeah, it'll probably be a little more than a page if you have like 6 paragraphs. So yeah. But like a little bit more, yeah.
Thanks, dear.
Yes. Thank you, yeah.
Is the instruction chemist?
It is the assignment, but I mean, it's just honestly just this.
I don't have a paper anymore.
There you go. You get it. Yeah, no worries. No worries.
This table is.
This is the table Rex. Not that the table's named Rex.
Yeah.
But
You're telling Rex.
You got it. Yeah, I should have said Rex. This is the table or whatever. Yeah.
This is the table Rex.
Yeah.
It's
It's
like
the king table.
No. It's a T. That's what I first read was. This is a T Rex.
That's actually pretty good. Hey.
I get points, right?
Yeah, that does.
Sit.
That does.
Think of how
And for
much we could
Spencer's
get from
comments.
the day
Yeah.
before Christmas.
My kids freaking quarantine.
Yeah.
There are 2 paragraphs for that.
Every time
So
we
the first one's only a paragraph.
do,
This is 2 paragraphs.
we like warm up, and then Adam's like, hey,
So total is
we're
6.
gonna play our music together, and we'll just play a portion of it, and then
Are you
move on
the
to the next one. And I'm
main
like,
supervisor?
actually, warming up.
I'm not the big coach. Mr. Nowitzki. Yes.
Right.
If that helps.
No.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did an oligarchy, and we're in charge.